Welcome back to Fireside Unsolved. We've explored numerous cases surrounding vehicles and car crashes on this channel, some of them baffling, others chilling, but all with questions that remain unanswered. Today we bring you another case that fits that description perfectly. The deaths of two individuals, found close to the crash site but not until months after the initial investigation, puzzling investigators for years. But what really happened to them? Were they victims of foul play, or did something else unfold that we're still trying to understand? Let's explore the mystery behind the deaths of Arnold Archambeau and Ruby Bruguier, and the questions that continue to haunt those who seek the truth. This is Fireside Unsolved, episode 128, The Bizarre Deaths of Arnold Archambeau and Ruby Bruguier. Arnold Archambeau, born in 1972, was a member of the Yankton Sioux Tribe. He spent his childhood on the tribe's reservation, located in southeastern Charles Mix County, South Dakota. Life changed drastically for Arnold during his teenage years when his mother passed away. Raised by his grandmother after the tragedy, Arnold eventually moved in with his aunt, and by 1991 he was working at the Fort Randall Casino. Ruby Bruguier, born in 1974, shared a similar path as Arnold. A fellow member of the Yankton Sioux Tribe, Ruby grew up on the same reservation, attending school in the small town of Lake Andes. Like Arnold, she was deeply rooted in her heritage, surrounded by the traditions and challenges of life on the reservation. By 1991, their paths had crossed, and Arnold and Ruby welcomed a baby girl that year, a daughter who became the center of their lives. Though the two never married, their connection remained strong, and they continued to navigate life together within the close-knit community on the reservation. It was the night of Friday, December 11th, 1992, when Arnold and Ruby decided to take a break from their responsibilities and left their young daughter in the care of Ruby's uncle for a night of socializing. Joining them was Ruby's cousin, 17-year-old Tracy Dion. The trio spent the night visiting friends, enjoying the freedom of a rare night out. By the time they returned to Ruby's uncle's home, it was around 6 a.m. the next morning, and it was clear they had been out all night drinking. Concerned about their drunken state around the baby, Ruby's uncle suggested they take some time to sober up and come back when they had slept off the night. With that, Arnold, Ruby, and Tracy left Ruby's uncle's home just before 7 a.m. After leaving the neighborhood, the trio found themselves at a three-way intersection near U.S. Route 281, a stretch of road that also serves as U.S. Route 18 and South Dakota Highway 50. Arnold, who was driving, approached the intersection and slowed to a stop. As he turned left onto Route 281, the vehicle suddenly skidded on a hidden patch of black ice. In an instant, it spun out of control, overturning and coming to rest 75 feet north of the highway, near an old railroad crossing. Tracy Dion, the sole witness to the crash, would later recount a puzzling detail. She never saw Arnold Archambeau leave the vehicle. Yet by the time the car came to rest upside down, he was no longer inside. Ruby Bruguier, clearly shaken, repeatedly cried out, "Oh my God," and pounded on the car. Summoning her strength, Ruby managed to push one of the doors open and slide out into the freezing morning. Tracy, however, found herself trapped, and when she tried to follow Ruby out of the car, the door she reached for was stuck. Unable to escape, she waited in the overturned car, alone and disoriented, until rescuers arrived sometime later. Among the first responders that morning was Deputy Sheriff Bill Youngstrom. He later recalled how he and his team scoured the area once the sun rose around 8 a.m., hoping to find any trace of Arnold and Ruby. But they did not return to the scene of the accident and could not be located. Officers walked up and down the road in both directions, combed the adjacent railroad, and examined the icy wetlands near the crash site. They even considered the possibility that Arnold and Ruby had wandered onto the frozen lake nearby. Yet, there were no footprints, no signs of a fall, and no indication that they had been there whatsoever. Deputy Youngstrom assumed this was just another case of a driver who had been drinking and fled to avoid legal trouble. In his experience, they would likely resurface within a day or two. But as the hours turned into days and then weeks, the mystery only deepened. Despite Deputy Youngstrom's assumptions, neither Arnold nor Ruby returned home or contacted their families. Their disappearance left everyone puzzled. Deputy Youngstrom continued searching, joined by family members and other officers, combing through the area around the crash site. They walked the 100 by 25-yard stretch between Route 281 and the railroad multiple times over the following weeks, but uncovered no trace of the missing couple. By late January, a brief thaw melted much of the accumulated snow, revealing the barren landscape beneath. A local man rode horseback along the same stretch, searching for a missing hubcap. Although he scoured the ground carefully, he found nothing unusual, just an empty, frozen expanse. Sheriff Ray Westendorf later noted this as an important detail of the missing couple. By early March 1993, there was still no sign of Arnold or Ruby. With the investigation at a standstill, police turned to the media, hoping public attention might lead to new information. Investigators had uncovered no evidence of disputes, legal troubles, or financial issues that might explain their disappearance. Desperate for answers, Merrick requested assistance from the state's Division of Criminal Investigation. Meanwhile, the families of Arnold and Ruby offered a $1,000 reward for any information that could lead to their whereabouts. Then, less than a week later, on the morning of March 10, 1993, a chilling discovery was made. A motorist reported seeing a body floating in the melting snow near the crash site, just 75 feet from the intersection of Route 281 and the railroad. When deputies arrived, they found the body of a young woman so badly decomposed that she could only be identified by her tattoo. It would be Ruby Bruguier. Believing Arnold Archambeau might also be nearby, authorities decided to pump out the water from the area. The next morning, their suspicions were confirmed. Arnold's body was found just 15 feet away, beneath what had been 4 feet of water. Unlike Ruby, his body was far less decomposed, and identification was immediate. The strange circumstances surrounding the bodies went beyond just the unusual level of decomposition. According to Deputy Youngstrom, a tuft of hair found on the roadside near the bodies was confirmed to belong to Bruguier. But there was something odd. It was in much better condition than it should have been if it had been there since the accident. Bruguier's body was still wearing the clothes she had on that day, yet her shoes and glasses were missing. Archambeau's body was fully clothed, but police couldn't confirm whether those were the same clothes he had worn on December 11, 1992. Strangely, neither his clothes nor his body were frozen to the ground, as they might have been if he'd been there through the winter. In his pocket, a set of keys was discovered, one for a car and 2 for a house. However, none of them matched any vehicle or property he was known to own or visit. The bodies were brought to Sioux Falls for autopsies, where the coroner found no signs of major injuries from the accident. The cause of death was determined to be hypothermia, but the precise time of death couldn't be pinpointed. It wasn't long before authorities came to a startling conclusion. Arnold and Ruby hadn't died at the accident site. First, they weren't there after the crash. Second, the bodies only appeared on March 10th and 11th, said Charles Mix County State's Attorney Tim Whalen. A press conference on March 19th became a battleground. Family members of the victims, along with reporters, openly accused officials of negligence and racial bias. When asked if he had taken photos of the scene that morning, Deputy Youngstrom confirmed he had, but explained that a processing error had ruined the negatives. "It sounds like you're trying to cover your tracks," Mike Archambeau responded sharply. Bruguier's sister went further, claiming that Native Americans were often overlooked in such cases. Archambeau's aunt echoed her sentiments, saying, "When a Native American is a suspect, the investigation is relentless. But when a Native American is the victim, it's not treated with the same urgency." Despite these allegations, they all agreed with Whalen's theory. The bodies had been moved from another location, and they hadn't been there since December. During the same news conference, Whalen revealed that police had spoken to a witness who claimed to have seen Arnold and Ruby getting into a vehicle headed east on Route 281 shortly after the crash. It wasn't the only sighting of the two. Ruby was reportedly seen nearby on January 20th. "We haven't ruled out foul play, but we haven't ruled out other theories either," Whalen said. Despite these sightings, neither of the two had been entered into the National Missing Persons database, as authorities believed they wouldn't have left the area. By November, New information emerged. After the autopsies, evidence was sent to a lab in New Mexico, which, according to Deputy Youngstrom, returned results that contradicted the initial findings. While exposure remained a possible cause of death, it wasn't the only explanation. However, Ruby's family, particularly her aunt, had a clearer sense of the situation. No one in the Sioux community doubts there was foul play, and that's a frightening thought. Quentin Bruguier, Ruby's father, was determined to find answers for a very personal reason. I need to know what happened so I can tell my granddaughter, who we're adopting, what happened to her mother. In 1995, a federal lawsuit regarding the boundaries of the reservation led to a temporary injunction, which stripped state and local law enforcement of jurisdiction over the portion of Charles Mix County the case was being investigated within the reservation. As a result, the FBI took over the investigation into the deaths. But in 1999, 4 years later, the agency closed the case, stating they could find no evidence of foul play. "There isn't any indication of anything else," said Special Agent Matt Miller of the Sioux Falls Field Office. "All we know is that they appeared in the ditch, and that was it." Since the turn of the 21st century, law enforcement has not actively pursued the case. However, the sheriff at the time, Westendorf, remained steadfast in his belief that many questions were still left unanswered. Upon his retirement in 2011, he told a local newspaper that the case remained the most puzzling of his career. "I believe they were placed in the ditch after they died someplace else," Westendorf said. "I know they weren't there in January. It's pretty hard to prove someone was murdered when you don't have any evidence to back it up." To this day, the case remains unsolved. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.